Hey guys, Sean here, and welcome to the F1 Word, and for the first time ever, the F1 Word Live. I'm not nervous at all. I am not nervous at all, I promise. Guys, we are here with post-Brazilian Grand Prix reactions, as I've been promising now for about 4 weeks, so, you know, well on time and consistent as ever. If you want to get involved, obviously, on the chat on the right side, you can tweet me on Twitter and on Facebook, but there's no guarantee I'm going to see that, because, to be honest, guys, most of my focus is just going to be trying to get this off without a hitch. So just bear that in mind a little bit for this first stream, but get in touch in the chat, of course, and make sure you say hi to the moderators. That's Luke Star, John T, Old Man Face. I have no idea why he's picked that one. And, of course, Eredito Z as well. So also follow on Twitter. There's some cool gifts as well if you want to subscribe and all that sort of thing. And I have got donations enabled. If you want to, guys, that's awesome, but they are not necessary. That is totally optional, as I'm sure you can understand. If they're going to work, that's assuming they work. So the Brazilian Grand Prix, we'll get straight into that then. We're going to kick off, if I get this right, by looking at the race result. If we're going to be able to do this, guys, just bear with me 2 secs. It is on here. I promise. I'm not lying. I absolutely promise I'm not lying. It is on here somewhere. Bear with. Oh, that is typical. I can't find it, guys. It's not popping up for some reason. Just 1 sec. It's this OBS thing. Just learning. There we go. Well, hey, we got there. It was Sebastian Vettel who took victory at the Brazilian Grand Prix, of course. He finished 2.762 seconds clear of Valtteri Bottas. Actually, to be fair, pretty close finish between the two of them, but I think we can agree if you watch the race, guys, Bottas really didn't have much of an answer. Very close at the first round of pit stops, which we'll go into a little bit later on. Kimi Raikkonen, he came home in 3rd place, 4.6 seconds off the lead. Lewis Hamilton, pit lane to 4th. That's pretty sound. I'm not going to say too much on Lewis Hamilton today because I've already been accused a couple of times this week of being a bit of a Lewis Hamilton fanboy, which couldn't be further from the truth. Maybe one day I'll tell you my true opinions on him. Max Verstappen in 5th place, and Daniel Ricciardo recovered brilliantly as well to 6th place. Kind of a little bit under the radar, I guess, for Daniel Ricciardo. Not a lot said about him, but after the Turn 1 incident. Felipe Massa, he finished in 7th place with Alonso 8th. Perez in 9th. More points for Force India. They've been fantastic this season. And Nico Hülkenberg, after a... should we call it a bitchy weekend between them and Toro Rosso, came home in 10th place. Now, this is where I struggle to get the second page up. There you go, straight away. Carlos Sainz, he came home in 11th place for Renault, just missing out the points a lap down. Pierre Gasly, again, I mean, could he be any more solid and consistent? If he's not 12th, he's 13th. So pretty solid again for Pierre Gasly today. Marcus Ericsson, guys, did not finish last. I think that's an incredible story for the day. 13th place for him. Pascal Wehrlein 14th. Romain Grosjean. The less said about his race, probably the better. He finished 15th. And Lance Stroll, he was going better than 16th, but last lap all went a little bit wrong for him. He finished 16th. And that retirement list view is Brendan Hartley again with more engine problems. Esteban Ocon, Kevin Magnussen, and Stoffel van Dorn. Not great for him today, but pretty decent for his teammate Fernando Alonso, as I didn't mention the result there. He actually had a good race. What did you guys think of the Grand Prix? I kind of found it really tense more than anything, just really, really tense. But I don't know. I don't want to say boring. I hate saying boring when it comes to F1 because I'm one of those who just... I don't know. It's hard to explain. I'm one of those that just does not like to talk about the races as proper boring. But for me, I think without Lewis Hamilton and Daniel Ricciardo coming through the field, there's absolutely no way that would have been a good race. And that's frustrating, you know. I love Brazil. It is a proper racer's track. So, yeah. I don't know, guys. What did you think? Anybody in the comments? Yeah, pretty decent. I think it's pretty... Yeah, I don't know. But Lewis Hamilton, we'll start with him. I don't really want to go straight into talking about Lewis Hamilton, but we will start with him, of course. From pit lane to 4th, just missing out on that podium. He cut through that midfield like a hot knife through butter. There's no denying that. Carlos Barton, Brazil wasn't produced. Yeah, that's true. Good dry races in Brazil are pretty rare, to be honest. They are. It is usually the wet races that throw up the excitement. Of course, 2012 is the one we all think of. But Lewis Hamilton just showing proper dominance in that Mercedes. I mean, I have no idea. How that Mercedes is so much better than everyone else. He was going past them like they were standing still. And that's, you know, we'll talk about Lewis Hamilton and how great that comeback is. But if half the field is that slow that he can just cruise past them with a brand new engine, you know, it would have I don't know. I don't know if you can call that an amazing drive, yeah, but I don't know if you can call that an incredible comeback. Hey, the pictures are working. There you go, guys. Sorry. Yeah, so, yeah, I don't know. But pit lane to fourth. I think the podium, I think it'd been better if he got the podium. He looked frustrated, actually, in Parc Fermé after the Grand Prix. But once he got up towards the back of Kimi Raikkonen, I think either tyres are gone. He'd had that lock up in turn one, obviously. So either tyres are gone or he just was not, just had nothing left to give or knew he wasn't going to get past that Ferrari. So bit of a surprise. Bit of a surprise, if I'm being honest. But we'll move on to Abu Dhabi, and I'm sure he's probably going to go and dominate there anyway. That is definitely a bit more of a Mercedes track, if I'm being completely honest. Bottas today, we'll talk about his team. I actually stick with Mercedes. Disappointing with Bottas today. Put in a hell of a lap yesterday. One hell of a lap to put it on pole. Actually, one of my other moderators, Johnny, who's not here at the moment, can't make it, he said it was Hakkinen-esque, that lap. And that might be a bit far, but I can understand where he's coming from, the way Bottas drove that car. So to come into this race, everyone's kind of talking about Bottas being in for the win, and this is the moment his season's going to turn around. And then, yeah, it just didn't go the way we were expecting, did it? And Bottas, I mean, P2, it's better than he has been, but you'd have to say if Hamilton had been up there, that's P3. Raikkonen on better form. I don't know, just disappointed for Bottas. And he just, yeah, absolutely, Johnny wasn't on the pace, and he hasn't been for quite a while now. It's just ironic. He signs a contract. Mercedes big him up. He signs a contract, and then he just absolutely falls away. I've got to talk about the race winner, Sebastian Vettel, today, guys. I know he gets a lot of stick. He's had a very tough time on social media from people like me after, obviously, Singapore and Baku. But, you know, he came into this race, sort of seemed really calm, had an all right qualifying, disappointed to lose out on pole, gets through turn one, down the inside of Valtteri Bottas, and just in, I don't know, complete and total control of the race. He was only sort of 2.5 seconds up the road from Bottas, but I just don't think he ever looked under threat. I mean, towards the end of the race, Hamilton was absolutely on it, and he was in it to win it for me. I did tweet out, and I did put on the Discord server as well, that he was absolutely in this to win it, and he had a great chance of breaking records, pit lane to win. Never been done, of course. I don't know, back of the grid, I think it has been done, but I think on like either, is it, I can't remember if it's an 18-car grid or a 24-car grid. It's something like that. But I think nobody's ever come from 20th, 22nd on the grid and gone on to win. So pit lane to win has definitely never been done. So that would have been a hell of a story. But Vettel, I get the impression, if I'm being honest, had Hamilton got second, Vettel would have found himself a little bit more time and a lot more pace. But there's not a lot to say about him. He stayed out of trouble. Decent move into turn one. Proper. Got the elbows out. We love seeing that down into turn one. And just absolutely kind of, I guess, not disappeared, but controlled the race really, really well. And I think he needs that. I think a lot of you will probably agree he absolutely needs to really win these last two races. Mercedes have already said this week that the battle for 2018 starts here. And I agree. I absolutely agree. You look at Nico Rosberg at the end of 2015 and how vital it was that he won. He won those last few races, and look how he carried that form into 2016. Yes, Lewis Hamilton had his reliability problems and all of that, but he carried that form into 2016, and that made the difference in the end. That made the difference. So if Vettel can win in Abu Dhabi, which I still think Mercedes are going to be on strong form, they're probably the fastest again, but if he can win that race, or at least the Ferraris can win it, that's going to give him huge confidence going into 2018, and they absolutely need that. They really do. I think there's not a lot more to say on Vettel and Mercedes and Ferrari. Just having a little look at the chat. I think Bottas gets too much hate. Look at Kimi, he is nowhere near Vettel. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Well said. Good point. I think Kimi, I think the only difference I put in there is that Kimi is clearly there to do a job as number two. Bottas, first half of the season when he was strongest and actually on proper form, he wasn't number two, and Mercedes were adamant he wasn't number two. Since you could say he's been switched to number two, his car hasn't been on form. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, Kimi Raikkonen, I don't know, he doesn't get the stick he should get, but at the same time, he races as number two driver at Ferrari. So I think we kind of know what that sort of means, I guess. Well, else we've got Hamilton, definitely had better pace, and I'm sure if he had pole, he would have run away with the race. I generally agree with that. If he hadn't run away with it, it would have been a two-horse race. Vettel and Hamilton would have just disappeared into the distance together. So, yeah, absolutely. Kimi just feeds points to Vettel. Yeah, that... Straight to the point. I love that. Yeah, it's very true. Like I say, number two driver, they're always going to do that. So that's how Ferrari were with Massa, Barrichello, Irvine. They've always been like that. So it's no great surprise there. It really isn't. Other talking points to raise. We're going to come on to it, guys. I've seen a lot of you on Discord discussing this. The Turn 1 incident between Ricciardo, Van Dorn and Magnussen. Okay. So that's, one of those incidents that usually gets overlooked by the stewards, and it was, again, absolutely overlooked. I would say if you're to place blame to anybody on that, it's Kevin Magnussen. Stoffel Van Dorn can't really go anywhere. A little bit like, oh God, I'm going to say it, a little bit like Max Verstappen in Singapore. Not really anywhere to go, kind of squeezed in that position, so there's not really anywhere for him to get out of that. John Watson won from 22nd. That's the one I was thinking of. Thank you very, very much for that. Very, very... Oh, damn, why did I not remember that? 22nd, 1983. Yes, he did. But Stoffel Van Dorn, nowhere to go. Daniel Ricciardo at that point, he's already right on the grass. So he's slipping and sliding. He's, didn't really have anywhere to go either. So for me, if anybody takes any blame, it's Kevin Magnussen. But I don't know. I just don't think, honestly, that there needs to be a penalty applied there. It's a first corner squeeze. There was no penalty in Singapore. So if there's no penalty in Singapore, there cannot be a penalty there. I know a few of you feel that Kevin Magnussen should have got one. I think it was a racing incident. Absolutely, I agree with you there. But yeah, like I say, Van Dorn's got nowhere to go. Just disappointed for him because McLaren looked on pace this weekend, which, given that long straight, you'd be forgiven for thinking that McLaren would have been in serious trouble. And okay, Fernando Alonso got his points because he basically used Felipe Massa, wasn't it, for DRS for the majority of the race. So yeah, massive shout out for that one for him. But I felt for Van Dorn. I think he's had a rough time this season. A lot of it reliability, of course, but I think that's just one of those incidents that has to go round or down as a racing incident. There it is. Look, a little shot there for you. Ricciardo's kind of nowhere to go. Van Dorn can't disappear. If he slams on the brakes, he's got someone in the back of him. Rear tyres are going to hit front tyres. The accident's going to happen at that point. K-Mag, it's always going to go down as a racing incident with it being the first lap and the first couple of corners, but I can't place any blame on Van Dorn. I don't really want to put any on Ricciardo. I don't think there's a lot he can do out there. And Kevin Magnussen, of course, yeah, he has to take part of the blame, but not a huge proportion of it. One man who needs to get a shout out for that moment, though, in turn 2, is Pascal Wehrlein. How the hell he did not end up in the side of that Red Bull, I have absolutely no idea. That was proper good driving. I thought there was going to be a big T-bone situation there, but they just about avoided it. But you can see from that picture there, I mean, there's not really a lot that Stoffel Van Dorn can do. You guys in the comments, let's have a look. Magnussen's fault. You say Magnussen, are you, Luke? Oh, okay. I don't know about fault. Definitely his portion of the blame, but I wouldn't say completely fault. I'm ready for Brit versus German 5, 2018 season, because 2014 was Brit versus German 1. Hamilton versus Rosberg. Absolutely. Yeah, I can see where you're going with this one. Yeah. Hamilton, Rosberg. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be good next year. It'll be good next year if it all works out. Opinions on Grosjean's rage. I assume that's rage and not race, but we're going to come on to that because this one is a little bit tougher to call. The safety car's deployed and the two cars collide. Now that, on the face of it, is unacceptable. Cars should not be crashing under the safety car. They should not be. I mean, you're going to have... I mean, he says Baku. Yeah, anyway. But they should not be crashing like that under the safety car. There's no way that should be allowed. I've watched that replay. That's the only shot I can get of it up here for some reason. I cannot seem to get a decent shot of it from on board. All the shots seem to be with Grosjean going backwards. But as the safety car lights flash on, they are side by side. They are side by side. Grosjean comes through. He loses his car. Now, whether that's because he's backing off for the safety car and they're already going through a high-speed corner or whatever, I don't know. It's tough to call that. But he loses his car, hits Ocon. That's Ocon out of the race and Grosjean's race destroyed. To get a 10-second penalty for that is very, very harsh. If the stewards felt they had to give a penalty, I think 5 seconds is the maximum they can give for that because it's not a deliberate incident. He's lost control of the car and hit Ocon. And both drivers are side by side. So he can't kind of turn around and say, oh, the safety car was deployed. You shouldn't have been in that position because actually... To be fair, they're side by side at that point. Both of them need to be realising that this is an accident that shouldn't be happening and we shouldn't be side by side at this point. But then I guess whoever's in front when the safety car comes out gets, an advantage later on in the Grand Prix. But I think 10 seconds was ridiculously harsh. I really, really do. I think, 10-second stop-go penalty for Vettel. I keep going back to it in Baku. No penalties for the incident in Singapore. There have been incidents this season where... you would look at it and say, wow, that's a slam dunk penalty and nothing's been given. And then Grosjean genuinely loses his car in a side-by-side moment and hits Ocon. And I think, yeah, I don't know. I just think that's harsh. I mean, if you're putting blame, you've got to put it at Grosjean's door because he's lost control of his car. But like I say, very harsh with 10 seconds. Yes, Charles, Ocon's first retirement. I was just going to say that. I actually put on Twitter his first retirement of the season. That is his first retirement in a single-seater since 2014. That's incredible. You know, we talk about Max Verstappen all the time, about how great a driver he's going to be. Esteban Ocon has got absolutely huge potential, and he could be one of the top contenders for that Mercedes seat should they not stick with Bottas in the long term. And he really is. I just, was really, really impressed with him. Really, really impressed this season. And I just think another one, a bit like Daniel Ricciardo's drive today, kind of just slides under the radar, but gets on with it. You think of all these incidents, though. You think of all these incidents with Sergio Perez this year, and you do tend to sort of think, how has he finished every race this season? We seem to be talking every other weekend about those two kind of crashing into each other. But yeah, I think he falls under the radar, but he had a decent season, and one retirement in that kind of situation is not gonna change who he is as a driver. It's not going to change people's opinion on him as well. Let's have a look more comments on this. Ocon retired. That's why he got the penalty. Probably, yeah, I'd agree with that. Grosjean had to say that someone hitted him. Yeah, I don't know. Grosjean moans. He just moans way too much. He really does. But yeah, good point. Vettel in Mexico hitting Hamilton, no penalty, but Grosjean gets a full 10 seconds. Yeah, exactly. You know, there's no consistency, and I think I saw a comment a minute ago. Stewards just aren't great this year. I think that is understatement of the year there, mate. That is absolutely understatement of the year. They've been shocking all season. And let's hope for 2018 they can maybe turn this around and start to get it right. I think, you know, I do feel for Ocon. I a little bit for Grosjean. Like I say, he moans a hell of a lot, but yeah, there you go. That's all you can say about Grosjean. I'm not going to answer that one on his nationality, and that's why he moans. But he's just had a bit of a moany season. It must be frustrating for him. If you think he's driving a Lotus for those years, and he's finishing on the podium in Bahrain 2 years running. He's consistently fighting for top-end points, not wins, but top-end points, and then he goes to Haas thinking all these promises of that seat at Ferrari, because I think that's why he went there, if I'm being honest. If I'm being completely honest, I think he went there thinking, hey, I can get in that Ferrari next year, and it just didn't happen. They stuck with Raikkonen, so it's a difficult one for Grosjean. I can understand why he moans, but I think they've got two decent drivers. I'm not going to say amazing drivers, not fantastic, but Haas have got two decent drivers, and you know, they're not out of that fight with Renault and Toro Rosso, but I think today they've kind of given themselves too big a task now for the last race. Grosjean's too inconsistent. Absolutely, Carlos. Absolutely. He's just one of those drivers, but yeah, I think frustration gets the better of him. Never ever seen stewards as inconsistent as this year. Completely agree. There've been some pretty bad decisions down the years, but yeah, absolutely, I'd agree that they've been the worst I've known them for a long time, for a very, very long time. Very, very poor. I don't know what Jonty's pretty good at his history stuff as well. He'll have a think back and see if we can pick a season where they were this bad. But yeah, they've been absolutely diabolical now. They really, really have. What else should we talk about? We'll talk actually about the pit stops, because I forgot to mention this when talking about Mercedes and Ferrari. Now, after the pit stops, it was that close. That is literally how close it was. Bottas tried to undercut Vettel, and it very, very nearly worked. I had this vision. I'm thinking back to 2010 and 2012 as some of Ferrari's really bad decision-making with strategy. I had this vision of them leaving him out, and that would have lost him the race today. Bottas' only chance to win it was that moment, and that is pretty much as close as they got all Grand Prix, apart from in the first corner. So there you go, Lewis Hamilton there. Fernando Alonso, we need to give him a mention. I have to talk about Fernando Alonso today because, again, he's used Massa very, very well. He used Massa very, very well with his DRS to sort of keep up with the guys ahead. But yeah, I think he's had a good end to the season. It looks as though Honda have sorted out some of the worst of their problems, but they still have the bad ones to sort out. So they're really, really struggling, Honda, this season, as we know. But I think they're having a solid end to the season. That'll give Toro Rosso a little bit of a boost. But I think Fernando Alonso, he'll be happy to be scoring points. And Martin Brundle said it in commentary. Crofty said it in commentary as well. A Renault engine in the back of that car, and we have got one hell of a driver in Fernando Alonso again. I mean, you know, he is a fantastic driver anyway. But obviously, if he's got a Renault engine in the back of that, he's right up there with Red Bull. There's no doubt. You look at him today, you look at him throughout the season. You just go back through the season, you look at some of his drives in that car to fairly substantial points at times. Let's be fair, to fairly substantial points. Was it Hungary? He did that as well. So you get a Renault engine in the back of that, and they're absolutely laughing. They're absolutely laughing. But yeah, Red Bull today, touched on them. Pretty all right day. Pretty all right day for them. I think Max Verstappen frustrated. They didn't have the pace to keep up with the Ferraris and the Mercedes today, but it was never going to be a Red Bull track. This middle sector, absolutely. I mean, he got the fastest lap of the race. I can't actually remember what the fastest lap was. It was like a 1:11.0, I think it was. I mean, an unbelievable lap. So he got the fastest lap. He got his payment bonus, which is pretty decent for him as well. So I think, I don't know whether Red Bull will be disappointed or not. I kind of think, part of me thinks they will, but like I say, Brazil, that long straight, the Renault engine, chances are they're probably not going to be right up there fighting. So to get 5th for Verstappen, and then for Ricciardo to come back with 6th, I mean, I think that's pretty solid. I think that's a pretty solid day for them. They'll be disappointed in some ways, but I think they will be happy as well with just getting the points on the board. Ricciardo, I'm going to talk about him. I said at the start, he fell under the radar today a lot because everyone was watching Lewis Hamilton. There is no doubt whatsoever that that guy needs to be equal status with Verstappen to compete for titles, because he is a future world champion if he makes the right decision at the end of 2018. Now, for me, that right decision would not necessarily be staying at Red Bull, if I'm being honest. They've already said, they're saying that they're going to be equal drivers going forward, but when you actually listen to what they said about Verstappen and building the team around him, that to me doesn't say equal status. So Ricciardo needs to make the right decision and needs to make it quickly. And I think today's just proven how well he can come through the field. You know, he's probably got a little bit of damage on his car from the first corner incident, not massive amounts. That's, you know, we're not talking Vettel 2012, but still some damage to the car. He's gone right to the back. He's fought his way back through with an underpowered car compared to, say, the Mercedes guys, and still got it through to 6th. He's just one of those drivers that does not get the credit he deserves. And I think the problem with that is that he is with Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen is his teammate. So I think that's, yeah, I don't know. Just I feel a little bit that he needs to make a right decision. There's the fastest at 1:11.044. Hamilton, obviously driver of the day, understandably, absolutely understandably. Have a look at your comments. Actually, guys, very quickly, do you think Daniel Ricciardo should stay at Red Bull, or do you think maybe replacing Kimi Räikkönen or even Valtteri Bottas in 2019 would be the right thing for him? Because I think I just don't see them being willing to have him as number 1 status or equal number 1 status with Max Verstappen. I don't see it at all. Just going to go back and have a look at some of your comments, guys. I don't see Grosjean or K-Mag cleaning up their act anytime soon. Yeah, I can understand why he's saying that. Alonso seemed a very happy man today. He did. Bottas needs to prove himself next year, absolutely. Or Ocon, he's got a shot at that seat, definitely. With the French Grand Prix returning next year and forcing looking strong as years go by, maybe Ocon on the podium. Yeah, I can see him getting on the podium for his home Grand Prix. Looking forward to having the French Grand Prix back on the calendar. Maybe not that track, though. Would have preferred Magny-Cours, if I'm being honest. Would have definitely preferred it. Nando in a Mercedes, I'd love that. I'd love to see Hamilton versus Alonso in the same team, round 2. 2007 all over again. I would love to see that. And I think there's definitely, from Fernando's point of view, some scores to be settled there. For sure. Honda don't have so much reliability problems anymore. No, they don't. Definitely. They've sorted a lot of their problems out, but they've still got a long way to go yet. And I think Toro Rosso are going to struggle next year, but they're definitely stronger now than they were start of the season. So they've come a long way, to be fair to them. We have to give them some credit. Who do you think would win the Drivers' Championship next year? Oh, Luke, how could you do that to me? I would... That's a tough one. Give me a minute. I'll think about that one. Just looking down here. Replace Kimi. I think he should have gone this year, to be honest. I'd be really, really harsh. But yeah, I think he should probably replace Kimi. I thought Perez was nailed on for that seat this year as well. He was in my sort of prediction. I thought he was in there with a shot at that seat with Kimi. I thought Perez would have been a better shout for Ferrari, but some would argue he had his chance in McLaren and blew it. But he's an older driver now. He's a bit more mature. So, it's a tough one. Replacing Ricciardo to Ferrari, yeah, that's a popular one. I had a feeling. Palmer to Mercedes. Really? Really? I'd love to see that. You could just see Palmer getting that Mercedes and blowing Hamilton away and us all going, Well, didn't see that coming, but no, that's yeah, no. But I like your optimism there. I really, really do. I was so nervous Kimi at the end, and that was shaking after the race. I had no nails left. I thought Hamilton was going to have him. I was desperate for Kimi to be on the podium because I wanted to have a strong end to the season and maybe take that into next year. But like I said, don't think Ferrari are going to let him challenge Sebastian Vettel for that title. Just having to read. It would be funny if Bottas proved us all wrong and just becomes world champion next year. Absolutely. He's in the right car to do it, or one of the right cars. There's no reason why he couldn't. So, yeah. Now, champion next year. Guys, I'm going to let you start that one off. Who do you think will be Drivers' Champion next year? We'll do a proper one on a live stream of that at some point, or in a video or something like that. Maybe in Discord, we'll have a bit of a debate on it, but I'm not sure. I think it all depends for me on how well teams finish the end of this season. If Ferrari can get the win in Abu Dhabi and really, really put a stop to Mercedes' second half of the season dominance, there's no reason for me why Sebastian Vettel shouldn't be favourite going into that. The problem is, and I am not a Hamilton fanboy, I'm going to make that clear now, but the fact of the matter is, any top team, Ferrari or Mercedes, that have Lewis Hamilton in that car are going to be serious threats because he's got the pace. He's got that natural pace. I always talk about it in my videos. He's got just a natural speed that, okay, Vettel's a quick guy, Alonso's a quick guy, but Hamilton can just drag a result out of a bad weekend. We saw it in Singapore. Yes, he got help, but if you remember going down into turn one, accident aside, he was already up into P2. He's round the outside of drivers, and then Alonso, of course, up in P3. So, I don't know. I just think any driver that has Hamilton in it, or any car that has Hamilton in it, is always going to be an absolute title favourite. So it's going to be great. I would love to see Max Verstappen do it. I don't know why. I'm not a Verstappen fanboy either. I'm not, by the way, I promise. But yeah, I think it's that Renault engine. I can't see that Renault engine competing for the title. I think the biggest thing for Red Bull next year will be keeping hold of third ahead of McLaren. But I think it is between Ferrari and Mercedes. And do you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go Vettel. I'm going to go Vettel for next year just because it looks like everyone's saying Hamilton in the comments. Hamilton next year, 5th for Lewis. Hamilton, can't wait to see your face when Palmer returns and blows everyone away and wins the World Championship by Monza. Do you know what? I don't know what you've been on tonight, mate, but I'd love some of that because that is some proper optimism. Hamilton next year and easier than this year, possibly. They've got a couple of extra races to get the car sorted. They were looking good for it early, so maybe they focused on that. They've already said they're bringing parts, haven't they, to the car for this season, so that's a big one. I want Seb to win title number 5 in 2018. Yeah, I think that'd be nice. It'd be nice. If not, if you're a Hamilton fan or you're a Vettel fan, then obviously you want your driver to win it, but as a neutral, it'd be nice to see somebody other than a Mercedes winning the World Championship. So yeah, I guess that's kind of what that is. If Red Bull get their act together, Verstappen could be in for a title. I still think that Renault engine is going to be a long way behind, but on the right track, the right day, the right conditions, the guy is unstoppable. You saw it in Mexico, so determined to win that race after what happened in Austin. The wet race in Brazil last year, 2016, just fantastic. So on the right day, in the right conditions, absolutely, there's no reason why he can't challenge. But I think the biggest thing for Red Bull next year has got to be making sure they stay ahead of McLaren for third place. Absolutely. Who misses Scott's speed? Not really, no, if I'm being honest. Ericsson not finishing last. I think that's bigger. I think that's bigger than anything that's happened today. Ericsson, every time, I always do it when I record my videos, I always have to kind of laugh to myself about it because he's become a little bit of a joke to me that he's always, if he's not last, it's only because somebody's 3 laps down after an accident or everyone's retired behind him. It's just brilliant to see him competing with 13th place runners. I don't know. Poor guy. I do make in the butt of my jokes, to be fair. He's a decent guy. Felipe Massa, we need to talk about him today. I've gone a little bit off topic there, but we have to talk about Felipe Massa, of course. He is retiring for good, apparently. I don't know how certain we are of that, whether he may be back next year, who knows. It sounds as though he's done for good, and I think he is a loss to Formula One. I know in my video I got some negative comments, that famous held for review folder, but for me, he's a driver that absolutely is going to be missed from Formula One. A proper fan favourite, very emotional today, particularly when his son came over the radio and at the end of the race, and I didn't cry. It was the wind. I had something in my eye that was just that moment, very emotional, very, very emotional. But it is sad to see him go. He is one of those drivers that I think we'll miss in Formula One. I really, really do. So yeah, we will see where he goes from there. There he is. I think that's emotion. He came on the podium, did his little speech to the fans, mostly in Portuguese, so I had no idea what he said whatsoever. I'm guessing something along the lines of, I love you all, and all that kind of thing that he said all weekend. He's actually retiring. So yeah, Massa retires, Stroll goes to Merc, Massa comes back to the sport. Absolutely, maybe Massa will retire and there'll be something similar happen. But it was an emotional moment, and I know that there's been a bit of stick for him this week from some people because he retired last year, and some are saying it's a bit of an attention-seeking thing, if you like. But I just think, you know, the guy, he would have been a world champion had 2009, John T just got there before me, had 2009 not happened, I think he would have been a world champion in the future. He was never the same after that. And even when he got back to full fitness, if you like, and back to almost his best, Germany 2010 happened, and we got the whole Fernando is faster than you rubbish, which at the end of the day, that's Ferrari down to a T, isn't it? And that was the ultimate kick in the gut for him. So I think there's a little bit of satisfaction for him today that he managed to beat Alonso to the line in his last ever Brazilian Grand Prix. I think it's just his last ever Brazilian Grand Prix. He did come over the radio and refer to it as his last ever Grand Prix. Now, whether something's going to get announced next week, I'd be very surprised if he doesn't turn up at Abu Dhabi. But sometimes when you listen to stuff on F1, you do go, okay, that's it, because they do surprise you. They do surprise you. There's no denying that. So yeah, absolutely. But an emotional day. His son came over the radio, like I said, got us all welling up for sure. What do you guys think of Massa? Do you think he could have been a world champion or should have been a world champion? Obviously very unlucky in 2008. I mean, over the course of the season, I think the right guy won the title, but very unlucky not to win that world championship in 2008. And I think that was one of the hardest things to watch as an F1 fan. Not necessarily because Lewis Hamilton won the title. I'm not Hamilton bashing again. I'm just saying, you know, it was hard. It was hard to watch Felipe. All that emotion. He thought he'd won it, then it got taken away. He got on that podium, and you've said it there, Massa was just the ultimate gentleman. He got on that podium, hand on his heart, showing just how passionate he is. And yeah, I think he handled that so perfectly. There are so many drivers in history that would have been very different in that situation, and he just was a proper gentleman about it, a proper champion. Unfortunately, didn't take it, and yeah. It amazes me it took years for Glock's full onboard lap to come to light. Are you sniffing a conspiracy there, Jonty? Massa deserved the title in 2008. Is that Glock going slowly? Yeah, that is the line, isn't it? That really is. But yeah, it was hard to watch in 2008. But today, that little satisfaction for 2010, I think, to get those points today. I don't know. The crowd went crazy. I mean, the noise. I've never ever heard it like that. Not since Senna was winning there or won there. The noise was incredible. Absolutely incredible. He's just a gentleman, a proper gentleman, and a proper fan favourite as well. A proper fan favourite. I'm looking for this conspiracy now. A lot of people claim Glock did it on purpose. Is that the how can I refer to it? The whole Glock and Hamilton are pretty good friends conspiracy that was flying around at the time. Massa's last race in Brazil, so Kubica can race in Abu Dhabi. Maybe. He's got another test coming up, apparently. Kubica, a third test for Williams, so absolutely possibly. Do you think Hamilton would have made top 4 today if there hadn't been a safety car? Ooh, that's a good question. He was helped out a lot, wasn't he, by the turn 1 incident and then the incident between Ocon and Grosjean. He was helped out by them massively because what's that? That's 3, 4, 5 positions straight away. So that's 15th you're looking at. Safety car comes out, bunches of field up. I mean, yes and no, I guess, because first things first, you've got a situation where, yeah, the safety car's bunch of field up, but on the first lap, they're not really that far apart, if that makes sense. So had that been like lap 10 and the safety car came out, it would have had more of an impact. But it definitely helped him. There's no doubt about that. But 4th, I still think he'd have got 4th because he was pretty quick on the Red Bulls and was just, aside from Max Verstappen's fastest lap on those fresh tyres, which he was obviously desperate to go for, having that argument on the radio with his mechanic, I think he still had the pace to beat them today. So the safety car helped, but I think he would have got there. He wouldn't have been as close to Kimi as he was, absolutely not, but I think he would have still got 4th place today. Even though Lewis is my favourite driver, I really wanted Massa to become world champion in 2008. I think we all did. And again, that's nothing against Lewis Hamilton. It's just, he's one of those drivers that, a little bit like Rubens Barrichello in 2009, I was over the moon to see Jenson Button. You were in a situation in 2009 where you had Button and Barrichello going for the title, and you were kind of happy whoever got it, but Barrichello would have been great, especially all those years he, should we say, suffered at Ferrari as number 2 to Michael Schumacher. Similar topic, who do you think Williams will take on? I struggle with that one. I go back and forth on that. I don't think the Wehrlein one is as rubbish as some people think. I really don't. I really don't. Some people saying it's to do with the Martini deal. Rainey Lee, welcome to the team, mate. Welcome to the team. Fantastic to have you on board. Yeah, I don't know. To be honest, I reckon Di Resta's got a shot, but it's looking more and more like Kubica. But my concern with that, as I said in my video actually the other week, or earlier in the week, I worry that's more on nostalgia and for publicity than anything else, which, yeah, I could see Di Resta getting the second drive and then Kubica as test driver or reserve driver, however you want to refer to it these days. But I think just keep an eye on Wehrlein. I don't think that's absolutely a no just yet. I think there's currently working with Martini. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot going on behind the scenes. If we see Robert or Di Resta in the car at Abu Dhabi, I will be really surprised. Agree. I think Massa will be there. It's just sometimes when you hear over the radio, you know, my last Grand Prix, you think, hey, what's going on here? But no, I think they will be there. Yeah, but you watch the whole lap and Glock's tyres were way beyond the cliff. Yeah, absolutely. Glock had no grip. This is why he went so slowly. F1 sucks. How was MotoGP? I'll enter that debate. I do not watch MotoGP because I think it's not great. Entertainment value, I've watched some races. They're fantastic races, but for me, F1, it's my passion. It's my love, so I'm never going to fall out with it over that. So, yeah, that's... sorry, I disagree on that one. There was a 30-second gap, 4th to 5th at the end, so, yeah. He would have been 4th, yeah, absolutely. I wanted Lewis to win it in 2007. Again, I think a lot of us did. I think he really would have been... It would have been incredible to beat Alonso to the title as well. To be fighting Alonso in the same car... Yeah, that would have been incredible. I stopped following F1 after they introduced the fake DRS in cars. I hate DRS. I hate it. I've always said I hate DRS. It's something that makes everything far too artificial. Michael Webber and Jensen have gone. Massa is going now. Kimi and Fernando are going to go in the near future. The old guard is disappearing. They are. It always happens, obviously. Drivers retire, and you look at the drivers that disappear. It was the same when... just trying to think back now, the likes of Hakkinen and co retired. You sort of thought no one's going to get near them, nobody. And then the next lot come through and they just look even better. You know, you think, oh, we're going to lose Hamilton eventually. Is anyone going to be as good as him? And then suddenly Verstappen comes through, and oh, we're going to lose Vettel. Is anyone going to top him? And then Leclerc's coming through, and you're like, well, you know, maybe. But yeah, the old guard are going, and it is sad, but there's always a lot more. Let's not get into sprinkler systems because that's just very Bernie. It's artificial racing, and if you find joy in fake racing, then you fell for the market employ. Thank you very much, mate. Thank you. I like to think I'm quite gullible. Conspiracy, the Daniel Kvyat effect took it. Look it up, yeah. Okay, fair enough. Real F1 fans stay on F1. Yeah, Nightbot's still playing up, which is good to see. Nightbot on form as ever. So I think today's race was one of those that, although not incredible, and I think had Hamilton and Ricciardo been in position, if you like, there's just absolutely no way we'd have got a half-decent race. I think aside from those two coming through the field and the first lap incidents, not a massive amount happened. So it would have been disappointed. But, yeah, it's one of those races. It's Formula One. It's absolutely Formula One. A couple more questions or whatever in the comments. So we'll come back to you in the comments in a few minutes, guys. Going to look at the championship tables in just a moment. What to think of the Halo? Yeah, I think it's an incredible idea and we should all be embracing it. No, I don't. I hate it. That's all I'm saying. It's not. Nah, I get it. I get the safety aspect. I understand why they're going to do it. But if you're going to close cockpits, here I go. If you're going to close the cockpits, don't go for some half-baked idea. Just put a canopy on it. Put a jet fighter style canopy on it and just put head protection in place. Don't put a half-baked, I don't know, flip-flop strap around a driver's head. It's going to save lives. It would have saved lives. We can accept that now. You look back, there are drivers outside of Formula One it would have saved. There are drivers in Formula One people claimed it would have saved, but I don't necessarily agree. But at the end of the day, it's only being introduced in Formula One. So if it's this big an issue around the world and everyone's so concerned, I think the Halo's the answer. Why has it not been introduced in his other series where it would have saved drivers' lives? It's not. So there we go. I think that's just... it's a knee-jerk reaction, and it's a half-baked idea. That's my opinion on the Halo. That's it. That's all I'm going to say on that one. Who do you think will be in the next far... I don't get the question, mate. Sorry. I was just about to say Leclerc, if anyone can break all the records, he will. Ferrari seat next year. Oh, okay, fair enough. I don't know. I want to say Leclerc, but 2018, end of 2018. I think Raikkonen will go at the end of 2018, but... possibly Leclerc, but it all depends how well he does at Sauber. But Ferrari like to give drivers a few seasons, before before they put them in the car. So possibly Grosjean, if they're going to honour what they've always said about him, but that would be a bigger surprise than Kubica sat in a car in Abu Dhabi, to be perfectly frank with you guys. Yeah, I think possibly Perez. There's no reason why Daniel Ricciardo couldn't get it. I put Daniel Ricciardo in there alongside Vettel. They get on well, which is what Ferrari like about Vettel and Raikkonen, so I'd absolutely put them in the car together. So that ticks that box for them. Ricciardo's more than a match for Vettel. He won't play number 2, which is the only thing I will say. But yeah, I would absolutely put Daniel Ricciardo in that car. Let's have a look, guys, at the Drivers' Championship table. It's not really anything exciting to look at. Lewis Hamilton, already world champion, is in gold there because he's world champion, not because I'm apparently his world-famous fanboy. Sebastian Vettel, he looks set now for second place. Can't see Bottas overturning that. He's going to finish third. Ricciardo, 4th, 200 points. I think that's a really decent season for Daniel Ricciardo. Really is. 7 clear of Raikkonen. That is the only fight, if anyone gives a damn, when we go to Abu Dhabi towards the top end of the championship. Max Verstappen, what a turnaround this season for him. 158 points. He had stuff all this time, before the summer break. He had absolutely nothing compared to anybody around him, and he's 158 points now. Fantastic turnaround from him. Yes, reliability has improved for him and gone to Daniel Ricciardo, but great turnaround anyway. Sergio Perez ahead of Esteban Ocon. That looks like that's the way it's going to stay, but those two, yeah, more than a match for each other. I'd probably say Esteban Ocon, without some incidents, probably would have been ahead of Sergio Perez today. Carlos Sainz, he switched teams, but still 54 points. The majority scored in the Toro Rosso. That's impressive. And Felipe Massa, with his result today, has jumped right back up into 10th place ahead of his teammate. It looks like he'll get 10th. Unless Stroll can do it, who knows? Quick look at the constructors. Yeah. No, I mean, it's done, isn't it? Let's be honest about this. Just looking for fights, I guess. I mean, the fight is still on between Toro Rosso and Renault, and if they're going to keep bitching at each other all week, then that'll be an interesting one. But I can't see Haas now overturning that. I think they had a chance. They had a chance this weekend to get some points on the board and keep that fight alive, but I can't. I mean, there's only 6 points in it. If both Toro Rossos, both Renaults retire and Haas have a really good race, then absolutely, they could do it. But I think the only fight left realistically now is between Toro Rosso and Renault. Unless, of course, Sauber can get themselves a win. Nearly said it with a straight face, in Abu Dhabi and take the fight to McLaren. I actually think, given the season they've had, by the way, 28 points for McLaren, not bad at all. Not bad at all for them. So, yeah, but that championship, it's all done and dusted. We're kind of, I don't know, we're at that awkward phase of the season now. We're waiting for next year. Championships are all decided. We're trying to look for scraps and all sorts elsewhere in the field, and there's just nothing there. There's just nothing there, is there? So hopefully we're going to get a title decider next year. We'll get to the final race and we'll have a title decider. I think it'll be closer next year than it has been this year. Certainly the second half, I think Mercedes have just stepped it up a gear, Lewis Hamilton in particular. So yeah, definitely. Let's have a look then. We'll have a look in the chat and see what you guys are saying. Also, can we just mention Ferrari were the only team who voted in favour for the Halo? Yeah, I think some have come around since, but at the time they used one of their vetoes, didn't they, to get that put in at the time. Who is the next Jim Clark? Wow. Can there be a next Jim Clark? Can there be? And that's yeah. That's a really good question. That is one for me to have a really good think on. I don't know. I think I mentioned it. I didn't mention it because I didn't put that video up because I had to delete it because I had an error in it. If you don't know, the video on Felipe Massa was going to talk about great drivers in Formula 1 in there as well, and it kind of, the audio screwed up and then I didn't end up talking about it by mistake. So yeah. But I will say, there are drivers like Jim Clark that it is very difficult to compare others to, because we will never know what they will have achieved. For example, Ayrton Senna, 3 world championships. You could look back through history and say, had Imola not happened, and I hate saying that, but if Imola had not happened, he probably would have won the title in 94, because if Hill can get that close, Senna would have got even closer, if not beaten him. You could probably argue 95, it would have been closer. 96, he would have won the title if he'd stayed at Williams, and probably 97 as well. So, it's the same with Jim Clark. Had Hockenheim not happened, he probably would have won more championships. So it's difficult to call. I get the question, but there are a lot of drivers coming through that are going to be absolutely fantastic, and maybe not going to be on a par with some of the greats, but they're definitely up there. Leclerc's one for sure. I think Lando Norris divides some people, but I think he's an absolute star of the future as well. And I still think Max Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo have got a lot to prove. So, but I can't pick a next Jim Clark because I just think he's one in a million, definitely. One point I'd like to raise, which has annoyed me, trophies. These Heineken copy-paste jobs are going very Santander lately. Yeah, they're not great. They're not great, are they? I mean, to be fair, I will say, Jonty, they're better than the fruit bowl that Jenson Button got in Hungary a few years ago. How is Chase Carey doing his first year in charge? I think he's handled it quite well. I think Liberty have actually done quite well. It's now where it gets really, really crucial for them. Really, really crucial. They need to deal with this 2021 thing and quick. I said it in my Ferrari video. I think they need to stand their ground. I think they will, but I think the FIA will make sure they back down. So I don't think there's anything to worry about. I don't take the Ferrari threat seriously, so I think they'll still be in Formula One for a very long time. I think it's more likely we'll lose Renault or Mercedes long term, but I think Ferrari will stay. I think that the sport and Ferrari need each other just as much, but you know, at the end of the day, something's got to give and somebody's got to back down, and I don't think it'll be Ferrari and I don't think it'll be the FIA. So, but I think Chase Carey, given what he inherited from Bernie Ecclestone, has done okay. It's just this next step now is critical, and that's where he's going to get judged. So, yeah. Next Jim Clark, I think we need to know is going to be the next Maldonado. Yeah. Can there be a next Maldonado? Nobody can be that bad, surely. Sab was a lot more interested. Mano was here. Yeah, they had a rival. They had somebody to fight. Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Would you say Hamilton is the best British F1 driver ever? Statistically, he is. Absolutely. The stats can say no other. He is the greatest British driver. I can never say that. Greatest British driver of all time. For me, though, I think one man, and it's the man that he beats that title, is very underrated in a lot of ways, and that's Sir Jackie Stewart. Not because of what he achieved, but because of what he did off the track. If it weren't for Sir Jackie Stewart, Formula One would not be as safe as it is now. He really got, ever since he taped that spanner to his steering wheel, that is when things changed in Formula One, and he doesn't get the credit he deserves for that, but he's certainly naturally the fastest British driver we've ever had. If he's the greatest, I think that's going to come down to everyone's opinion. For me, no. There's not a lot in it, but I do believe Jim Clark is better or was better, and I think Sir Jackie Stewart needs a bit more credit than he gets for other things other than his racing, but he's definitely top three, possibly second behind Jim Clark for me. George Russell, oh yeah, great weekend for him actually in testing. Solid FP1, yeah, solid FP1. Really good to see him in the car. He's got a bright future in Formula 1. Oliver Rowland as well is another driver. Oliver Rowland, who absolutely should be getting a crack at Formula 1 within the next couple of seasons. So comparing drivers of different eras should have a defined cut-off at 1990, which is when most cars switched to paddle shift gears with no clutch pedal. Good point. Good point, yeah. I think it's difficult to compare drivers from any era anyway. I think you can't compare Schumacher to Fangio. Even though I'm probably going to with this next line, but I think Fangio rates as a better driver than Schumacher. Maybe not statistically, but I think any man that can take a car during one of the most dangerous eras of Formula 1 and win 5 world championships over 7 years with 4 different constructors has to be the greatest. So, but I understand, yeah, it's very difficult to compare different eras. Of course, even a like or sub is appreciated as well. Absolutely, Erudito Z. Absolutely. Anything's appreciated. Anything's just not abuse. Just not abuse. Even then, as long as it's got a point to it, I don't mind. All the trophies of Santander shit in 2012, they were, at least it felt like that. Yeah, they were pretty bad. Let's have a look. I have respect for the old drivers, but today's drivers are better. I don't get why this is debated. Sportsmen always get better, not worse. They're fitter. They're definitely fitter. They can get through, you know, I don't think we'd ever have seen Fangio get through a Singapore. I don't think we'd ever have seen that. There's no denying that. I think, yeah, it's a fair point. You know, footballers now are better than they used to be. So, yeah, I get what you're saying. Sportsmen always get better, not worse. Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Who is the next Colin Chapman? I think that was Adrian Newey, wasn't it? Do I dare say? He hasn't brought his own team in, but I think in terms of design, he absolutely was. I think he's just unrivaled, quite frankly. James Allison as well deserves a shout out on that one. I would argue that stats get bloated because of the increased number of races. True, I agree with that, but I got to say Hamilton passes all my eye tests. Fair enough. What is your opinion on the rumour of Porsche teaming with Red Bull? Yeah, it's possible. It's definitely possible. It sounds like it's somebody, was it Martin Brundle today, or was it? I'm trying to think who it was. It might have been Toto Wolff actually, who basically said that it looks like Porsche are going to come. I think he said it looks like, he hasn't said they are, but it looks like they're on the table. So maybe Red Bull, although I guess that kind of depends what deal they've got with Aston Martin long term. But yeah, I can see that happening. Red Bull rather, they need a works deal. They need a works deal to compete. Stewart called Clark the best driver he'd ever driven against. Yeah, so did Beaky Sims, his mechanic as well, said he was the greatest driver that's ever existed and the greatest driver he ever looked after. So, yeah, I think he is. Fangio is the greatest of all time. Absolutely. Stats don't mean much in my opinion. Look at Montoya deserved the championship a lot more than Villeneuve. I'm not a Montoya fan. Not in Formula One. Fantastic in IndyCar and all of those other series. NASCAR he was okay in. But yeah, I don't really rate Montoya as highly as a lot of people do. But statistically, I know what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely. Is Renault going to provide Red Bull with engines after 2018? No. I think that's a done deal with Honda. I think that's what the Toro Rosso deal's all about. I think they'll have Honda 2019, 2020, and then 2021 we're going to see about probably Porsche, maybe a deal with Aston Martin. I don't know. There were rumours not long ago that Red Bull were going to get a year-old Mercedes engine and then rebadge it as Aston Martin. But when you actually think about it, had they had a Mercedes engine this season, you could probably back them for the world title. So that's never going to happen now. It's the technology that gets better. Yeah, absolutely. I think the sportsmen do get better as well. I think they do. But yeah, the technology definitely is a hell of a lot further on than it is now. Don't forget that Fangio won 4 of his titles after a near-death crash. Absolutely. Do you think Red Bull are playing a dangerous game by going against Renault? Yeah and no. Again, they've been doing it for a long time now. Renault and Red Bull have been at each other constantly now for the last few years. So I don't actually think necessarily it's a dangerous game. I think Renault have called their bluff a little bit now and gone, well, if that's the way you think about us, then we're gone at the end of 2018. Then it's kind of backfired. I think the game's backfired now. Red Bull Aston Martin engine in 2019. Maybe a rebadged Honda as an Aston Martin, but I don't think Aston Martin will be in before 2021, if I'm being honest. You could say Fangio wouldn't last Singapore, but then again, the first win at Monaco in 1950 was 3 hours, 3 minutes without an hour of red flag in the middle. Fair point, fair point. It's not quite to the same heat that Singapore is, though. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Aston or Porsche won't be coming before 2021. Agree with that. It's ironic that after Hill lost his drive at Williams, they never won a race or championship since. I think that came down to losing the Renault engine more than Hill, if I'm being honest. Again, Hill was an underrated driver. He was very underrated. You look at some of the races he had for Jordan, particularly 98. I know Belgium, he got a little bit lucky, but you know, he dragged that car around some pretty decent results. So he was definitely underrated, but I think it was losing Renault that seriously cost Williams, and they never really recovered from that. It's so mind-twisting that they make the car slower and safer than the cars in Schumacher's era, in which no one dies in, and Bianchi dies in 2014. On Jules Bianchi, I don't think we've covered it on the channel at all, actually, really, other than sort of in the Halo video briefly. But Jules Bianchi was killed because of the tractor on the track, and for reasons that I'm not going to go too deep into in the stream because there are other sides to that story. Me and Jonty had a chat about this the other day, actually. There's some controversial opinions on that people don't like because obviously we lost Bianchi, it's devastating, absolutely tragic. But, you know, yeah, without the tractor there, ultimately he's not hitting the tractor and, yeah, he wouldn't be here. But, yeah, they're definitely safer than they used to be, and losing any driver is hard. But I don't think we're ever going to have a sport that is 100% safe, and I don't think it should be 100% safe. And Bianchi 2014, Senna 94, you know, I hate saying it, but you know, you're talking 20 years, 30 years down the line, there'll probably be another. It's horrible to say, but it's true. It's just sometimes these things are going to happen, freak accidents at the end of the day, and that's Formula One. It's a dangerous sport on the back. Murray Walker always said it, and I went to Silverstone last year, and it said it on my ticket. Motor racing is dangerous, and if that's been passed on to the fans, then the drivers know that as well, and it's a dangerous sport, and we know that. We're not stupid, are we, guys? But yeah, had Williams got on better with BMW, they might have done it. Yep, definitely. They were strong in the early noughties when they got that engine, but just never really happened with that. Ish happens. I know what you mean, but yeah. Do you think even with Vettel's winner, the championship Mercedes will still win the Constructors' Trophy? Yeah, I do. Ferrari like a Drivers' Championship. They absolutely do. And although they've won many Constructors' titles, they've come very close to losing some because they've played the 1-2 game in terms of number 1, number 2 drivers. So yeah, I think Mercedes will be better there. I think Bottas is consistent enough for Mercedes. Bianchi's crash will not happen again. They said Senna's crash. They said after Senna we'd never lose another driver. You never know. I hope it can't. Tractors on the side of the track are just ridiculous. Don't get me started on controversial opinions. How about this? If only Ratzenberger had died, not one of the safety changes would have happened. Yeah, I'm going to leave that out there. Sterling Moss, great driver. I'd say it'd be good for Aston Martin to do something else, like start their own team. Yeah, I think it'd be better as a constructor. Absolutely. Martin Brundle was calling out an accident like Bianchi's occurring for years, almost a decade before it did. When was Brazil, where Fisichella won? Okay, I'm going to kind of coming towards the end of the stream now, guys, but I will actually say this because that's a really good point. Martin Brundle had an incident in Japan, and I've forgotten the year, which is going to really annoy me all day. But we go back to Japan, and he had an incident. There was a tractor on track. He actually hit a marshal and broke that guy's legs, and he got a penalty for that and got in serious trouble for that. 94, thank you. He absolutely has been calling for years about this. Now, I was watching, what was I watching? The 97 Luxembourg Grand Prix the other day, just because I was bored, so I wanted to watch a race, there you go. So I watched that one, and Villeneuve's coming round the first couple of corners, and there's just a tractor there, towing a car away casually, a marshal sat on the front of it, marshals all over the track, and you think, what the hell are you doing? Back then, that was acceptable for some reason. It's crazy, but more recently, 2007, if you think back to the Nürburgring 2007, same track, you've got that torrential rain, the one that Marcus Winkelhock ended up leading for like a couple of laps on his debut, his one and only Formula One race, you know, cult hero now in Formula One. There was that river across the track, and drivers were going off left, right, and centre. Scott Speed actually spun at that corner, went backwards, and although not at speed, actually just hit a tractor that was on track. You know, there you go. So even then, not a huge spin, not huge pace. It was never going to be a massive accident, but he's hit a tractor. You know, is that not warning sign enough? You go through Formula One. I think it was me and John that were talking about this the other day. Tamburello in San Marino, Gerhard Berger's huge accident. Nothing was done about that corner. Senna's killed a year later. So the FIA are too slow to react to things like that. So yeah, very recently too, was surprised a lot of people seeing a race from just before the VSC was a thing. Yeah, Brazil 2003, there were close calls at turn 3. There was Schumacher, he was off, and then I think, was it, I think who came spinning in, because Montoya was still sat in the car, and they were, yeah, absolutely crazy. When you think back to the close calls we've had, and you look at some of the stuff, even more recently, I can't remember the year, but the marshals on track in Canada, one of them fell over, didn't he, in front of one of the cars, and you think, what the hell are you doing? What the hell are you doing? Was Liozzi what I think? I think it was Speed. That's a good question. I might have a look at that later. If it is Liozzi, I'm sorry, mate, but for some reason I have it in my head that it's Scott Speed, but I think because he's just such an amazing driver, I can't help but think about that one. I think we're going to leave the stream there, guys. I think we are, because there's not really... I've kind of wandered off topic quite a bit in this one, but that's because the race, like I say, aside from Hamilton and Ricciardo, not a massive amount to talk about, really, if we're being honest. But, you know, it's one of those, like I said earlier, it's one of those races where we get to the point of the season where everything's wrapped up and we're just kind of waiting for next season. Basically, that's going to leave a mark. Stop spamming caps warning. Who's been using caps? That's terrible. How dare you? Yeah. Anyway, so we're going to leave the stream there, guys. Thank you so much for coming along to this. I know it's been a bit hiccupy and a bit all over the place, but that's my first ever stream, so it was always going to be that way. Hopefully, we're going to make this a regular thing, and they're going to get better and better. Also, massive apologies. For some reason, the Streamlabs thing hasn't been popping up notifications, so if you have subbed, my newest team member, of course, is Sam Goodall. Thank you so much for that, mate. If you have subbed and you've not had a shout out or it's not come up, I do apologise. I will sort that out for the next stream. We'll get that absolutely sorted, and you guys will get the credit you deserve. But thank you so much for coming along, guys. It's been fantastic interacting with you all. I'd like to make this a regular thing, definitely. I like a chaotic stream. Thank you. That's what I'm going for. Honestly, that was all planned. I've not spent ages trying to get this perfect at all. But yeah, no, chaotic. At least you know, guys, it's completely unscripted, and I'm just going off the cuff, if you like, and I've used you guys. We've had some great conversations, and we'll have some good debate, I'm sure, in the future. Do come and join us on Discord, because there is some cracking debate going on there, and I love, even if I don't interact in it, I'm always popping in and having a look, because you guys have got some great opinions, and it's fantastic to hear what you have to say about Formula One. This has been very smooth, mate. I've seen some catastrophic first streams on YouTube. Yeah, this wasn't... It will get better, but thanks, mate. It was a lot smoother than I anticipated. Great to have you all on board. Like I say, pop onto Discord. There is a link if my wonderful fantastic moderators could just spam very, very quickly a Discord link in the chat, that would be awesome, just to give everyone a chance to come along. That'll last, I think they last about 24 hours of Discord links, but I will keep putting them on Twitter, so come along to Twitter as well, follow me on there and the Facebook page. I'll keep posting because I want as many of you guys there as possible on the Discord, because we can just carry on these debates all day and all night. Streamlabs was down for part of the stream, not the channel's fault. Oh, there you go. Yeah, screw you, Streamlabs. Yes, come along to Discord, guys. Follow me on Twitter and on Facebook as well. I will be back in the week. I'm off this week, so you're going to get a little bit more content from me. There's also going to be the podcast. We are going to be working on Danny. We are going to be working on our own, and we're working with Jonty, and hopefully, provided we can get it sorted, with Johnny as well, who couldn't make it tonight. Unfortunately, got called into work at the last minute, but shout out to him because he's been really decent. We had a really good chat the other day, so hopefully we can get the podcast, at least a test podcast, done this week, so we can start looking at moving that forward for during the winter break and maybe get that started as soon as possible. So that's sort of coming up very, very soon, but there will be more content in the next week, of course, guys. And we've got Abu Dhabi, the final race of the season. I'll be relieved for this season to be over now, because like I say, we're at the point now where not a lot's happening in Formula One, so we could all move on to 2018 and start silly season nice and early. We'll do that through the winter, a lot of silly season stuff. But what about you? Yes, you need to, DJ, you need to, I can't say that last bit, sorry, mate. We'll call you DJ E. You need to send me a private message on YouTube. I might be able to do it from the chat message, actually. Give me a bit of time on that, but send me a private message on YouTube, mate. And I think you're on the Discord, aren't you? And if you are, then send me a message on there as well, and we'll have a chat as well and get you involved, because you're another one I'd like to involve on the podcast if we can. But I'm going to sign out as I always do, guys. As ever, thank you so much for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.